The House has just voted in favor of passing the new version of the Violence Against Women Act. Now, when there was a government shutdown, the Violence Against Women Act was not something that, unfortunately, Congress looked to pass, and they did not extend it, and so it did expire. And luckily now, with Democrats taking control of the House, they've brought it back up again, and it's a little more robust than the previous version. However, the fact that it's robust is exactly the reason why it's likely to stall in the Senate. So the latest fight concerns the Violence Against Women Act, which contains a provision to ensure that people convicted of stalking or abusing their dating partners rather than only spouses or family members cannot own guns. Now, I really want to emphasize again the word convicted in this legislation. So this is not about people who are accused of stalking or abusing their partners. This is about people who have been convicted of doing so. And so the new version of the Violence Against Women Act would take guns away from these individuals who do pose a threat because of their conviction.
So now, of course, the NRA is opposed.
Yes.
Because is it fair to say they don't care about women who've been abused? Yeah, 100% fair. They care about gun sales. So they're like, well, I mean, if a stalker or a domestic violence, somebody who committed domestic violence is gonna buy a gun, I'm still gonna make money, aren't I? You know what I'm saying? And by the way, if they shoot and kill someone, everybody's gonna be scared and they're gonna wanna buy guns.
That's right.
So I get to sell guns to the, not only the guy who did the abuse, but the woman who's scared to death of him. So they think it's a win-win if you make sure that those criminals can still get guns. They have absolutely no shame.
So I do want to share the reasoning, the exact reasoning that the NRA cited in opposing this provision. The NRA argues the bill is too broad with overly subjective terms. What's subjective about convictions? I mean, these people have been convicted. So I don't know what's subjective about that. Anyway, broad with overly subjective terms such as including former dating partners. It also objects to permanently preventing people convicted of misdemeanor stalking offenses from having guns, arguing that such offenses may not necessarily include violent or threatening behavior. So in the view of the NRA, stalking isn't necessarily considered violent behavior.
I mean, you're just,
or threatening behavior.
Yeah, I mean, just because somebody stalked someone else and they were convicted of it, now you just want to take their guns away? Yeah, that's what we want to do, that's right. Because, I mean, the whole time you guys have been making the argument, the right wing has, of look, we just want good guys with guns, and they're the only ones that can stop bad guys with guns. But these are bad guys. And so you never cared if it was good guys or bad guys. All you cared about was making more profit. Gun manufacturers fund the NRA. It is literally in their business interest to make sure that more people have guns, more people use guns, more people are afraid for their life and buy guns. And the way you do that is you fight bills like this. Now, the portion about dating partners is important because the old version of it said only people that have stalked you or done domestic violence that you were married to or that were in your immediate family. This extends it to dating partners, and the NRA says, well, you're taking due process away. No, you're not taking due process away. That was in another quote that they had, because there was already a conviction. It's not on speculation. And what difference does it make if it was your husband or your boyfriend, your wife or your girlfriend? They stalked you either way, or they did domestic violence either way. So what earthly difference could it possibly make?
No, Cenk, so just one minor correction, and the only reason why I'm doing this is because it's important to cite who brought up the lack of due process, even though this has to do with people who have been convicted already. It actually was Dianne Feinstein who is planning on drafting her own version of the Violence Against Women Act. So I want to go just give you the details on that, and then we'll go to Representative Carol Miller, who is a Republican very much against this provision. But here's what The Hill reports. Senators Dianne Feinstein, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Joni Ernst are working on their own proposal to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act. Ernst's office said that she has concerns that the gun provision in the House Democrats bill doesn't ensure due process. So to be fair, it's Ernst who specifically cited that, but she's in cahoots with Dianne Feinstein in the Senate when it comes to drafting their own version, because it appears that they're going to help Republicans in the Senate, strike down or vote against the current version coming out of the House.
So a lot of the mainstream press were like, "Oh my God, why are you guys opposing Dianne Feinstein when she's a wonderful Democratic incumbent from the state of California in the Senate position?" And just Democrats did oppose her because she's not a wonderful Democrat. She's a conservative Democrat. To even entertain Joni Ernst's nonsense about due process when everyone this touches has been convicted is to help Republicans in their talking points. Here's another thing you could do. You could say, listen, these people want to have criminals who have hurt women to have guns, because it's true. And you can make our case. Instead, as usual, Dianne Feinstein finds a Republican, hugs her, and is like, oh, let me help you make your case. And then, of course, all the Washington media will be like, oh, wonderful compromise, bipartisan compromise. We're compromising on whether women who have been stalked, harassed, or assaulted should have their assailants be allowed to get guns after their convictions. And we're compromising on that. Should we compromise like, well, how bad was the meeting? Is that the compromise we should be having with the Republicans? How bad was the stalking? I mean, was it a felony? And this is literally what the NRA is saying. Was it a felony or was it a misdemeanor? Did he threaten to kill her? Did he actually kill her? I mean, how bad was it? And so maybe but if it wasn't so bad, the threat that he put that woman under, maybe he should have a gun so that he could make it worse. And Democrats now entertaining this idea. It's sickening.
And there are some Democrats in the House who are saying we won't even entertain a version of this legislation that does not include that provision. Now let's go to Carol Miller, Representative Carol Miller from West Virginia, who regurgitates the right-wing talking point, or I should say the NRA talking point on this issue.
Now is not the time to play politics. This is an issue where we can and should find common ground. It is not the time to hold the safety of women as a bargaining chip against infringements on religious liberty or weakening of the Second Amendment.
How dare she?
Carol Miller.
I can't accept that.
I cannot accept that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carol Miller, of course, ran against Richard Ojeda, who's on the soundboard now for the ads that he ran against Carol Miller. Now, if Ojeda had won instead, he'd be fighting on behalf of women's rights. Instead, they send a woman to go fight against women's rights. And she says they're playing politics. What do you mean? First of all, every piece of legislation is both policy and politics by definition. So when they propose a policy position that says women should be protected from the people who assaulted them or harassed them, when you say no because my NRA donors don't want you to, you're playing politics. The whole thing is politics. So it's an absurd talking point to go in there and be like, oh my God, we would protect women if it wasn't for the Democrats playing politics. All right, great, then let's protect women. No, hell no, NRA told me not to do it. And they gave me all my checks. What was the thing that Ojeda talked about when running against Carol Miller? He was one of the few guys who was brave enough to say, listen, look at her donors. She's corrupt. She's corrupt because of the money that she takes from donors. She used that money to defeat Ojeda. And what's one of her top donors? The NRA. So here she is throwing women under the bus and their safety under a bus because she gets paid to do so.
So while she's paid by the NRA to regurgitate those talking points, I do want to draw some attention to Representative Debbie Dingell, who is in favor of this provision. And the reason why she's in favor of it is because what she's experienced firsthand when it comes to abusive behavior. She says, if we are doing a Violence Against Women Act and we are trying to save lives, why would you not choose a simple loophole that says if someone has been convicted, not accused, convicted of domestic violence or stalking, that they not have access to a gun? And then according to The Hill, asked if the provision was a Violence Against Women Act poison pill, Dingell said, quote, you know what, sometimes things are as simple as this. I know that fear, I know that terror, and I just want to try to save another family from going through that terror. So you can run and tell that. So we'll see how this goes, but it again is very likely to stall in the Senate.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.